When the squirrel in your yard looks at you, do you know what they actually see? You probably think they see a person, maybe a friend. Definitely the one who fills the feeder. But the truth is that the squirrels in your yard have never, in the entire history of their species sharing space with humans, looked at one of us and seen a human. They are not capable of it. The mental category does not exist in their head. What they see instead is something stranger and more specific than almost any backyard observer would believe. By the end of this, you are going to know exactly what category the squirrels in your yard have placed you in. And once you do, you are going to start noticing things in their behavior you have walked past for years. Start with the first thing they see. The squirrel is not classifying you as a friend, an enemy, or a fellow mammal. The squirrel is classifying you as a shape. A specific shape. A specific size. A specific pattern of movement that produces a specific consequence in a specific location at a specific time of day. Robert McCleary at the University of Florida has done some of the most careful work in the world on how urban and suburban squirrels read individual humans. His findings are clear. The squirrels in a given yard distinguish individual people by face, gait, voice, clothing pattern, and the sound the back door makes when that specific person opens it. They are not confused about which human is which. The squirrel that runs to the top of the maple when one person walks outside but barely lifts its head when a different person walks out is making a deliberate distinction based on data it has been gathering for weeks. But this is where most people get the science wrong. The squirrel is not separating humans into good ones and bad ones the way a dog might. The squirrel does not have a category for human at all. What the squirrel has is a category for each individual human treated as a separate type of large land animal with its own classification. You are not a person to the squirrels in your yard. You are a specific predator shape that, in this specific yard, produces food in a specific reliable pattern. The classification is more like the way we mentally categorize the difference between a thunderstorm and a sunny afternoon than the way we categorize the difference between two friends. You are a weather pattern with a face. What science has recently discovered about why a squirrel that has classified you correctly may actually trust you more than a pet trusts its owner is something we will come back to. But first, the second thing they see. The squirrel is not just classifying you, the squirrel is placing you on a map. Lucia Jacobs at the University of California, Berkeley, whose laboratory has produced the most influential work on squirrel cognition in the world, has shown that the dominant structure inside a tree squirrel's mind is spatial. A squirrel does not remember the world the way you and I remember it, as a sequence of moments and conversations. A squirrel remembers the world as a map. Every nut cache, every dray, every escape route, every dangerous corner, every safe branch, every food source, every predator perch, all of it is held simultaneously in a three-dimensional spatial layout that the squirrel can update on the fly. You are on that map. Not as a friend, not as a creature it has feelings about, but as a feature, the same category as the maple tree and the wood fence and the back porch step. You are a piece of stable, reliable, predictable terrain that produces food at certain times. This is not as cold as it sounds. In a squirrel's world, being mapped as terrain is the highest classification a moving creature can earn. Every other large mammal in the yard, the cat across the street, the hawk on the wire, the dog walking past the gate, is mapped as a moving threat. You are mapped as a feature. Becoming terrain to a squirrel takes months. The squirrel does it deliberately. It tests you, watches you, measures you, and only after enough data has accumulated does it move you from the moving threat category into the terrain category. From that point forward, you stop registering as a danger. You start registering as part of the yard. There is a small detail here that surprises almost everyone. The squirrels in your yard are not looking at your face. Gray squirrels have excellent vision, especially in motion detection and depth perception. They have a visual field of almost 300 degrees. They can see ultraviolet light. They can track a hawk's shadow across the lawn in real time. But the part of their vision that resolves fine detail at a fixed point, the part you and I use to recognize a face, is not what they are using when they look at you. What they are reading is your gait, your pace, the rhythm of how you cross the yard, the pitch of your voice, the smell on your clothes, the sound of the back door, the sound of the seed scoop, the sound your specific footsteps make on the wood of the porch. A squirrel in your yard asked to find you in a crowd of identically dressed humans would do it by watching you walk, not by looking at your face. The squirrel has been compiling a movement signature on you for as long as it has lived in the yard, and that signature is more reliable to it than any photograph. This is the reason people who try to approach a wary squirrel slowly, wearing the kindest expression they can manage, are still treated as strangers. The face is not the relevant data. The walk is. Then there is the part almost nobody knows about the sounds. The chattering, the clucking, the teeth-grinding noise, the little muck-muck sound a squirrel makes from a high branch when you walk outside. Most of those sounds are not part of the normal social vocabulary squirrels use with each other. Robert Leishock at Auburn University spent years cataloging gray squirrel vocalizations. The species has a real and specific alarm language used among themselves. Sharp cooks for ground predators, quahs for aerial threats, modulated calls for distance and direction. That language exists, and squirrels use it constantly in the canopy in ways most humans never notice. But the sounds a habituated squirrel makes at a specific familiar human are different. They sit outside the normal squirrel social repertoire. The little clucks and chitters from the top branch are not really alarm calls in the species' typical sense. They are something a squirrel that has spent months around a particular human has learned to do, specifically at that human, in a way that has no equivalent in the wild population. It is the squirrel equivalent of the cat's meow, a sound the species does not really use with itself, that gets repurposed exclusively for cross-species use after enough exposure to make the effort worthwhile. The squirrel decided, somewhere along the way, that you were worth the effort, which leaves the part most people never get to. A squirrel that has classified you correctly as a stable feature of the yard with a known movement signature, that produces reliable food and never broke trust, is not just tolerating you. It has done something with its mental map that almost no domestic animal ever has to do. It has placed a predator shape inside the safe layer. In a squirrel's spatial cognition, the world is divided into zones of safety and zones of risk. The dray is the safest zone. The cash tree is the second safest. The feeder is conditional. The open lawn is exposed. The fence line is dangerous. Every other large mammal in the area is automatically in the risk layer. You, after months of consistent presence, get pulled into the safe layer. This is not a metaphor. It is a measurable shift in the squirrel's behavior. The animal that fled to the top of the oak when you opened the back door in March is the same animal that now sits eating 6 feet from your shoe in October. Its survival instincts have not failed. Its classification of you has changed. You have been remapped from the same category as the hawk into the same category as the oak. That kind of trust is not what a pet gives its owner. A pet was bred for thousands of years to trust you by default. A pet's nervous system was selected, generation after generation, to soften in your presence. A squirrel's nervous system was never selected for that. A squirrel's nervous system was selected to flee from creatures shaped exactly like you, in environments exactly like yours, every single time, for tens of millions of years. And the squirrel in your yard, on its own, against every instinct in its body, decided that you were the exception. You are not their owner. You are not their friend. You are something a wild animal has spent its whole short life classifying. And the classification it has given you, the rarest one it can give to anything that walks on 2 legs, is part of the safe place where it lives.